So what's up, morons? So I want to talk about baseball for a minute, yeah? MLB. And the American League MVP, right? Well, I'm pretty sure, first of all, in the National League, it's Paul Goldschmidt. And he's... last time I checked, it was a while ago, he was just better than everybody else. Even though he's, like, way worse than the two best guys in the American League. So yeah, in the American League, Judge versus Ohtani, right? And everybody seems to have these like really bad arguments. Terrible. So obviously these two guys, they're the best in baseball right now. This season. Yeah. But everybody who likes Ohtani is like, la la la, Ohtani should win, and then they give a bunch of bad arguments. And everybody who likes Judge, they go, la la la, Judge should win, and then they give a bunch of bad arguments. So the people who like Ohtani, they're like, da da da, he's a two-way player, so he pitches and he hits, and nobody else does, so he's the greatest, and he should be MVP, right? And they're like, he's making history, and nobody's ever done this before, and somehow that means he should win it. Alright, well... The people who like Judge, they're going, Judge is only a one-way player, like everybody else that's not named Ohtani, right? He just hits, but he hits really good, at least this season. Just really high average. He's hit a ton of home runs. I feel like the people are kind of leaning on the home runs in their arguments. They're like, well, now we broke the home run record. Tonight he did. He hit a 60-second one. So everybody's like, he hit the most home runs in the American League ever in a season, and that means he's the MVP. Well, there's a little more. So if we get into WAR, like wins above replacement, I think that's the thing you should probably look at the most. So wins above replacement basically means how many more wins the player is worth than a replacement level player over the given season, right? So apparently normal players, they have about like or average players have about 2 WAR, and so if you have like 0 WAR, then you know you're not very good and you should probably be replaced because you're replacement level, right? Ohtani, you know, he has the second highest WAR. He's like 9.8 or something, really good. And then Judge has 10 point something. I don't know. Ohtani's 9 point something, and then Judge is 10 point something, and nobody else is even close. So you think, well, okay, Judge just has higher WAR. Shouldn't he be the MVP? Well, maybe. So, you know, people have those other arguments about Ohtani making history and all this crap, right? That don't make any sense. They don't actually mean anything. But, Ohtani's, you know, his WAR is taking his pitching and his hitting into account, right? So, when Judge only hits, he has to be hitting a lot better than Ohtani to have a similar, or even higher in this case, WAR, right? So Ohtani pitches really well, and he hits really well. But Judge hits really, really, really well, right? But there's one difference. I saw somebody mention, a few people, or it's a point people bring up, it's the extra roster slot, right? So if Ohtani hits really well, and he pitches really well, and everybody else in baseball just does one or the other, well, okay, now you have an extra spot on your team, right? Because he's a pitcher and a hitter. Now you can have an extra pitcher or an extra hitter. So it's like, well, now the question becomes, if we're just looking at WAR, well, we also have to think about the extra roster slot. So those are the two things. Is being a two-way player, is the extra roster slot, is it worth more than the difference between Judge's WAR and Ohtani's WAR, right? I don't know. I don't know. Does anybody? Does anybody know? I don't think there's... I don't think we have a way to calculate that. Maybe there is. I haven't heard of it. Well, there has to be a way to calculate. We just don't know it, right? Like, what's an extra roster spot worth? Would you trade... I don't even know how that's measured. So it's 1 win above replacement. It's like... Does that mean the difference between having Judge versus Ohtani on your team is just 1 win across the season? I think that's how it works. And so then the question is, would you trade 1 win over the 162-game season for an extra roster spot on your team? Probably. And then, okay, so if the average player has a WAR of around 2, but, you know, if they're a relief pitcher or if they're like a player, a backup player, they don't play every day, then their WAR is going to be lower. Yeah, so it's like you have this extra roster slot. So if it was an everyday player and they have a WAR of about 2, then, you know, Ohtani, being the two-way player, is basically adding an extra 2 WAR, right? So instead of his 9-point-something, he would have like 11-point-something, and he would be better than Judge, right? But I feel like that would mean that you're using the extra roster slot for an everyday player, which you aren't, right? You're using it for a backup player, aren't you? I think that's how that would work. Basically, somebody who you're going to use when your other players have to rest or they're injured or something. So it's not another everyday player. It's not really a 2-WAR guy. It's like a 0 to, you know, somewhere between 0 and 2-WAR guy, really. That's probably who you're getting in the extra roster slot there. So maybe a relief pitcher, maybe just a backup player, who knows. So I feel like it's really close. I think Judge is going to win AL MVP, American League MVP. I don't know. It's not clear. A lot of people think it's just like a landslide one way or the other. Judge should definitely win, or Ohtani should definitely win. I don't think so. I think it's really, really close. They're like within, 1.5-ish WAR of each other, and then that roster slot. I don't know. It's probably worth about the difference, so it's going to be real close. I don't know. I think Judge is going to win. He got the home run record, and is that thing people say, where if you give it to Ohtani this year, you have to give it to him every year, assuming he's this good every year, because who's going to have a better offensive season than Judge this year? Like, if Judge can't beat Ohtani this year, when's somebody going to do better than Judge has this year? Not anytime soon, probably. So, yeah, I think Judge is going to win. That's my opinion. And people have crappy arguments. That's my other opinion. Yeah. So, subscribe or you will be...